All right. Dr. Jack Sheth,
Yeah, hi, how are you, Mai?
welcome to SAUPO. And you have so much wisdom. So you've attended most of the SAUPO today. What wisdom can you share with us about what we should expect for the future?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to speak. This is the first time I'm speaking at a virtual conference. It's going quite well so far, what I heard. I think the pandemic will have as dramatic an impact in rechanging the economic aspects of the world, but also geopolitical aspects, as World War II did, Great Depression did, for example, and probably more recently, the economic recession of 2008 and 9. I see the impact on three major areas, and I'll focus on each one of them to give some comments and observations. The first one is the impact on pent up demand. The pent up demand worldwide, not just in America or advanced countries, is so large, and it will not be limited to tourism, travel, therefore benefiting airlines or the entertainment industry, for example, which are very large physical based, such as sports, etc., but will be impacting all traditional businesses, such as garments, for example, appliances, and automobiles. Now, pent up demand will be there, but the supply will be under so much of pressure, at least in the short run. So, for example, if you say US is going to grow at 6.5% in the second half of 2021, China will grow even more, and China has a very large domestic market now, not just the export market. Countries like India are also having a huge economic growth of their own, and other countries. My view is that therefore supply chain will be most critical to manage. And the supply chain management is going to be more difficult in the short run because supply chain is totally disrupted. And so ultimately, we think supply chain will get more and more distributed, as I think the panel talked about before, where the same global enterprise has supply chains in different regions of the world, if not different countries of the world. That will be the only solution. There will be a permanent change in the supply chain function from being highly concentrated in one nation or in one geography to more and more distributed supply chain, which avoids the risk because I can transfer from one capacity to the other on a global basis. As the semiconductor industry is trying to do, but that'll be true of garment industry, that'll be true of appliance industry, no matter what you look at, which has its own implications about logistics and how the logistics will be reshaped in the process. The second major area is going to be on workplace, people working. And there are two, three components. First of all, the workplace itself will be redefined more by regulation. Pandemic will bring about regulatory approach, policy approach to say, if you're going to have workers work in a given factory or work in a given office environment, here are the ways they have to be organized, like social distancing, mask wearing, safety, sanitation of the workplace, etc. So that'll be very key. It'll be more driven by regulation and public policy, hopefully on a global basis. So maybe some United Nations agency can provide guidelines and standards that everybody obey. However, the work will be definitely more automated. This is the time when, during the pandemic, at least because of its persistence, even the small and medium enterprises have decided to do digital transformation. Digital transformation has worked quite well in the services industry, especially because of the affordability. No capital dollars are needed. You have cloud computing, you have the Zoom webinars like what we are doing, etc., and the workflow continues. So digital transformation will bring about significant couple of changes. There will be a shortage of workers. Very true. There'll be in the beginning, there'll be a shortage of workers or employment, surprisingly. And in the longer run, work will be more automated. There'll be more automation for efficiency, productivity, and therefore countries that rely on labor will get more impacted in the process than countries that don't rely on labor primarily. It's like same thing happened after the energy crisis for the automation of the automobile industry. Robots took over afterwards, essentially, because of the union issues and everything else. So that's clearly one key area. And the last area that I think will be happening in the workplace is that people will be demanding, not the employer, but the people will be demanding, I can work from anywhere, especially for professional services. And I think there was a recent announcement by companies like IBM that they expect only 20% of the workforce to come to an office place, a workplace. 80% will be working remotely someplace. And how do you organize that flow? So you need not only the physical infrastructure, logistics for products, but you also need the IT infrastructure, information highways on a worldwide basis. And how do you create that properly? It'll be time. So that will be in the workplace primarily. I also believe, surprisingly, the rise will be of the gig economy, like Uber. I think there'll be more because people will decide, I'm very comfortable working from anywhere. Why should I then agree? So I would say, sign me as a contractor. So we see the rise of contractor market more than just the employment market. And I think it's a kind of a win-win between the employee and the the employer or the corporation. So we'll see some architecture there that'll be differently. And the last comment I will make has to do with the geopolitics. Every major event that persists, like we said, Great Depression, World War II, there's a complete restructuring of the global economy. And here are a couple of things. First major impact will be the Brexit. Brexit is here today. So the British economy, which is pretty significant economy, is going to decide how to distance from European Union and where to align. My forecast is that the British economy will align much more strongly with the US economy as economic partners. This was advocated by the previous administration on both sides, and I think the dialogue will continue. British economy also will align very much back to the Commonwealth nations. So that includes Canada, Australia, India, parts of Africa. That's very key. It's a very large economy to have a significant impact on the geopolitics of the world, just on the economic side. I also believe that there will be a new triad power. The old triad power used to be in North America, US and Canada, the 12 Western Common European Market countries, and Japan. As of 1987, they had about 75% of the world economy. GDP was created, about 45% of all the trade was done. The rest was with their former colonies. This has been shifting since the collapse of communism, WTO that came in, liberalization of the markets, China opening up quite a lot, both as a sourcing destination, but also as a market destination kind of thing. So the new triad power is surprisingly will be US, China, and India. And the reason is that these are the three largest consumer economies if you measure on a purchasing power parity basis, which I believe is a better measure than currency exchange measures. So China is today more than $30 trillion. US is about $28 trillion or $24 trillion. And now India is surprisingly $11 trillion. And the question is how these three triad powers will behave with each other. There are tensions among all of them, for example, and therefore in any kind of a trilateral relationship, there's always the possibility of two getting together as allies or partners to compete or to rival against the other. And that is the tension that we are watching right now between China and India, China and America and India. It seems like the way the market is going right now, India and America will partner more and more because they depend heavily on services each other. So I think so that will be a very key area. And I do believe that the each one will be so interdependent on the other that despite all the tensions, there will be a rivalry among the three, clearly, with India becoming the most strategic nation, try to balance the two sides pretty much. But there are also some unfortunate events taking place. As Asia becomes the center of attention in this century, as America was the center of attention last century, that includes the ASEAN bloc, obviously, China definitely, India I include as a part of that architecture, but you have Japan and South Korea, you have Australia. It's a pretty large bloc. The trade within the bloc is the largest and will increase even more post-pandemic. It'll become the largest growth engine in many ways in GDP if all these nations understand market processes can be put together, infrastructure investments can take place, and because of that, they will have an enormous economic power, maybe political power in the process, and definitely military power. So given that kind of architecture, I'm watching as to how that will impact post-pandemic new world altogether or a new world order. And I just hope that it is a new world order that benefits all citizens of the world, not just some countries or the other countries. I will stop here. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer, or my colleague can go on.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sheth.